Welcome to the Washoe County School District's WIDA Overview video, World-Class Instructional Design and Assessment by the English Language Learner Department. WIDA is a consortium with the collaboration of the University of Wisconsin and the Center for Applied Linguistics. This consortium consists of 29 different states, which Nevada joined in the summer of 2012. In this video, we will explore the two main branches of WIDA. The first of the two WIDA branches we will look at is that of assessment. As stipulated in Title III ELL legislation, a yearly English language proficiency assessment is to be given to all English language learners. The previous assessment was called Lost Links, and we contracted through McGraw-Hill. And as this is faded out, we will begin the adoption of the Access Test, which is made by WIDA and Cal. This assessment will be given in the spring of each school year, and the assessment results will be sent to the schools in the summer. The next component, which we will look more in detail, is that of the WIDA instructional framework that is designed for all teachers in every subject area to appropriately instruct and support all of their students. We will detail this framework in a moment after we look at the Common Core and WIDA connection. WIDA and Common Core need one another. WIDA is framed so that the standards of any given state are applied to their framework. And Common Core has stated that the standards do not say how to get students to reach the standards, but unequivocally state that all students must be held to that level. WIDA supports mainstream teachers, as well as ELL teachers, to understand what students can do at different development levels towards meeting the Common Core. Moving to the heart of our schooling system, which lies in our classrooms and in our instruction, an English language learner's day in our schools is predominantly spent in the mainstream classroom. A smaller portion of this day is spent in the ELL room receiving explicit instruction on the English language. The WIDA framework, purpose, and philosophy is based on the fact that the content and language knowledge necessary for success in our schools revolves around every single teacher supporting this development. The Common Core standards that are instructed on a daily basis must be accessible to all of our students, and WIDA supports teachers in understanding how to do that. With everyone trained in WIDA and Common Core, all students, including ELLs, will be provided exposure and opportunities to the appropriate rigor. It will provide them access to grade-level content and language. With WIDA, by truly understanding and differing the levels of language development and what appropriate supports might be throughout this process, resulting in higher student achievement. WIDA provides ELLs access to the Common Core by providing a framework for teachers to hold ELLs to a high cognitive demand while providing appropriate linguistic scaffolds. With the rigor, access, and support for English learner achievement, our students will find greater success in mainstream classes, standardized tests, and beyond our school walls. We will now return to our framework to go into detail on how WIDA supports all of us. The beginning component or pillar to our framework begins with the English Language Development Standards. The English Language Development Standards are shorter than most standard lists we're accustomed to. WIDA has 5 standards for English language learners. The first is the social and instructional language that students need to communicate for social and instructional purposes within our schools. Standard 2 is that English language learners can communicate information, ideas, and concepts necessary for academic success in the content area of language arts. That abbreviation is the language of language arts. For standards 3, 4, and 5, you can see that language is simply duplicated, however, specifies that standard 3 is for mathematics, standard 4 is for science, and standard 5 is for social studies. These standards hold true across their grade level clusters, so all of WIDA's materials are divided into these grade level bands. So as you see, we have a formative pre-K through K, and then there's a 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and 9, 12 grade level cluster. The standards remain the same for social instructional, language arts, math, science, and social studies. The next pillar we will explore of this framework is that of the English language development levels. WIDA has a range of 6 English language development levels ranging from 1 through 6. Starting at level 1, we have entering, emerging, developing, expanding, bridging, and reaching. Superimposed over this chart, you will find the old Lost Links letter correspondence to really understand what these levels mean according to what we've had in the past. So you can see that a level C student is approximately in between a 3 and a 4. Descriptors of language development levels help us to understand what students at each given level can do. The next pillar that we will explore of the WIDA framework is that of the can-do statements. These statements really emphasize WIDA's philosophy around what students can do instead of looking at it in a deficit model. We will explore very briefly what this looks like. In listening, an entering level 1 student, and this is a 6 through 8 grade band, should be able to follow one-step oral commands or instructions, match social language to visual graphic displays, identify objects, people, or places from oral statements, questions using gestures, and match instructional language with visuals. We can see in level 2, in the instructional portion, how the language grows by understanding multi-step oral commands. As we move up this language development spectrum, the level 4 expanding is able to identify main ideas and details, and the level 5 bridging can use oral information to accomplish grade level tasks. And at the bottom of that list, we can see they are able to discriminate among multiple genres read orally. And we remember that this is the language domain of listening. The function of these can-do descriptors is really to accentuate the positive and help us understand what our students can do. It really highlights that students at each given development level can address our content and how they can use the language to do so, while providing them access to our grade level content, and really informs our instructional practices. It is important to remember that these are only a sampling of the skills that students can do at each level, not an exhaustive list. The next pillar of the framework is that of the language domains. Most of WIDA's resources are broken down into the domains of listening, speaking, reading, and writing, so that we can really distinguish between where our students' strengths lie in each of these domains. The next pillar we will explore is that of the model performance indicators. This resource really helps us to understand what and how students can process and produce at a given development level to the standards being taught and assessed. This sheet we are going to look at in detail exists in all grade level bands for every subject, so at the top portion you can see the little flag is identifying this as the language of science. As we zoom in here on this document, we can see that the connection portion highlights and just gives a model or an example of a standard. This standard happens to be the interdependent relationships in ecosystems. The next portion identifies an example context. So the context for this lesson is to listen to oral descriptions and recognize key functions of organisms to prepare models to display. So now that we understand the standard and the context, what we see here is that this is highlighting the language domain of listening again. Moving over down to the bottom, we see that there is a portion that always identifies topic-related language. This, for this particular standard, identifies consumers, predators, producers, decomposers, scavengers, function, and species as topic-related language that all students at any given language proficiency level or development level will be able to use. Moving on over here, we can see that WIDA identifies the cognitive function so that we all remember that we have to hold all of our students to the same cognitive function while only changing potentially the language we are expecting from the students. To help us do this, we can see across the top the English language development levels, and under that are the model performance indicators. Across this band, you can see the strand where the standards remain the same, however the linguistic complexity grows and the supports change. Let's explore this for a moment. As you can see in the middle of each of these model performance indicators is a common objective. This is our standard. Students will be able to understand the functions to organisms within ecosystems based on, and then there's a support here. Across the top, we can see the language function. So students, while they are listening, will identify at the entering level, they will match at the emerging level and the developing level, they will connect at the expanding level, and at the bridging level they will categorize. Underneath each of these is the support that WIDA feels is appropriate for a student of said given language proficiency or development level. So we can see that on the left side we start with using photos or illustrations, and all the way over to level 5 in the bridging they can use extended oral discourse to be able to categorize. Now equipped with the understanding of WIDA as an instructional framework, we will look at how WIDA fits into other district initiatives, trainings, and protocols. This is an exciting time in education, with many changes, new standards, systems of measurement, and frameworks. Obviously, all of these are aimed at student achievement. This is why we are all here. When we pull back and look at the Common Core standards, the professional growth standards for evaluation and growth in our profession, cultural awareness and appropriateness, as well as multi-tiered systems of support, there are a myriad of ways we can connect each of these. More of the connecting pieces within this puzzle lie in our preparation around best practices, whether it's skillful teacher training or backwards design, sheltered instructional observation protocols, or guided language acquisition design for our ELLs. None of these supports in providing instruction are going away. WIDA provides a framework to look at ELLs in your classroom, their language production, and then design appropriate instruction using all of these puzzle pieces. The assessment portion of our classrooms being formative and summative assessments, along with the standardized assessments we are and will continue to give, prove that none of these pieces can stand alone. The English Learner Department has made a rollout plan for training schools in WIDA. There are 5 phases, which do not translate to 5 trainings. Let's look in detail. First is an overview with the whole staff on what WIDA is, including this video, as well as an exploration with the English language development descriptors. The second training is that of candor exploration, where we explore the can-do statements and teachers are able to place their students on their own roster along the developmental spectrum for WIDA and identify what their students can do in each of the language domains. That is also whole staff. The next is done in small groups. These can be grade level bands, content areas, or any other PLC identified by the school, where we're able to look at, now that they've established a foundation and they understand the framework of WIDA, they've identified who their students are, we're able to look at lessons and how we can tweak our lessons or change them given our language proficiency and development of our students. The fourth component is that of lesson design implementation, where we really go in depth into the model performance indicators that we saw earlier and help to take one of our standards, look at our context, and decide how a couple of our students would be able to perform across those standards. The final is continued support, obviously, in any way that the school sees fit. We're able to support individual teachers and PLCs after all of this training. If you have any questions or for more information to request any staff trainings or just general information regarding English learners, please contact our department. Our director is Janine Kelly. The elementary program consultants are Pete Coben and Karen Parisho. Our secondary program consultant is Dawn Adams. The assessment and compliance consultant is Trudy Nunn. Our GLAD trainers are Edith Gaw and Chris Gingras. SIOP trainer is Kimberly Howland. Our ELL instructional coaches are Lori Campbell, Karina Santos, Maya Tulso, and Carol Stranford. Thank you for watching.